Get away from her, you boomer. Andrew. And this is Gayties Toys. Today's MIA 80s Ladies is one of those great kind of all-around stories where, the female in question was made not for, sexist reasons, but rather the whole line wasn't made. And also, the final verdict is really like this whole full circle kind of moment. So let's just get right into 1979's Alien, Ellen Ripley. Like so many of the stories of franchises from the late 70s and early 80s, it all starts with Star Wars. I mean, Star Wars was a seismic moment, not just for Hollywood, but also for toy companies. Merchandising, particularly toys, became part of the marketing and the dollars of major movies suddenly. Like all the major studios, 20th Century Fox was eager to replicate its own success of Star Wars and just jumped at the chance to get in bed with Ridley Scott when he proposed an Alien movie. They did not realize, maybe at the time, just what he was proposing. I mean, what Ridley Scott created was a psychosexual sci-fi thriller with a hard R rating. Nevertheless, they sort of took that and kept the mold from Star Wars on with that. Kenner, high on their own supply from the success of Star Wars as well, went back to 20th Century Fox and said, hey, let's recreate the magic with your new Alien movie. Somewhere along the line, the communication broke down. Either it was an executive or someone from merchandising or franchising who, misled Kenner, or Kenner just didn't ask the right questions. Regardless, Kenner was all in, and they, took Geiger's designs of this, again, psychosexual, erotic alien creature and said, yeah, that's fine. Let's make some toys out of that. Once it became very apparent that no one under the age of 17 was going to be able to watch this movie, Kenner did go to 20th Century Fox and said, hey, any chance you could make this PG? Fox said no. Kenner said, to hell with it, we'll do it anyway. They went ahead and first released a 18-inch Alien big chap figure. This thing was a beast, and it was very detailed, glow-in-the-dark skull, chrome teeth, terrifying. Went to market for Christmas 1979. If you thought that parents feigning outrage and clutching their pearls and screaming into the sky was a brand new invention, nay. This was very, very much a big thing in the 70s. This is why there were regulations in place for cartoons not to be, toy commercials, why there was no violence in cartoons. This is why, the big deal was when Reagan deregulated all that in the 80s. We got the glory age of cartoons and toys. However, in the 70s, this was such a gamble to have an R-rated movie pitched to kids. This was too for, a terrible idea in the sense that the kids were actually terrified of the toys and were not allowed to watch the movie. So, as quickly as they put the product out, they quickly retracted it. The sales were awful. This is where we get to the subject of today's video. Kenner, as well as the big chap, big 18-inch cat-sized figure, they also had planned a Star Wars-ish 3 3/4-inch 5 points of articulation line. This would include, of course, the alien, but also members of the Nostromo crew, including at least one Ripley. As part of the lost prototypes that were, later found, Ripley was certainly, the star of the movie and was, very much in the toy line. Kenner was a little less precious about having women in toy lines in the early and late 70s. Much less, than they would be after the Hasbro, buyout. Ripley was in her jumpsuit. However, some people will say that the character in the spacesuit was Kane, which makes sense because he had a very memorable scene of being infected by the alien. Likewise, other people say that, Ripley was actually in the spacesuit, and this was her character at the end of the movie, after she, donned the spacesuit from that horrible, horrible underwear. Just the worst underwear ever to see screen. This would also make sense. Again, Kenner wasn't, too plussed about having, two characters of the main, two figures of the main character, but nevertheless, I probably would go more in the Kane avenue, which we'll get back to later. I love this final verdict because it kind of gives us a little bit of, two flavors. So, for one thing, Aliens would go on to become a huge franchise. maybe too big. There's not a lot of good Alien movies, but luckily in 1986, the direct sequel to Alien was Aliens with an S, because there was a lot more suddenly. This movie, while still very much an R-rated movie, was very toyetic. There were Marines, there were, different kinds of aliens. There were power loaders, cool weapons. There was a lot there, and Kenner, again, jumped on board, and they sort of did at least try to propose, comic books, maybe a cartoon, something to actually tie into a toy line. They did go ahead and just make a toy line. The characters were not quite screen accurate, let's say. They created a lot more different kind of aliens, but most importantly, they did make Ripley in her iconic maroon t-shirt and yellow boots combo from the movie. Regardless, we got one. Likewise, as part of the Aliens line, we would eventually get kind of two different versions of Vasquez, one of the Marines. We did not, however, get Newt, which we will come back to someday. As for Ellen Ripley, from the first movie, that was a bit more of a longer journey. So NECA has long been the toy company who makes Alien figures. There's some others. They're not really worth mentioning, but they would eventually, finally, in 2016, make Ellen Ripley from 1979's Alien with her cat. Unfortunately, they wouldn't make the underwear version or the spacesuit, so we'll see if there's more on the horizon. But there is a collector, well-articulated, beautifully painted figure out there, finally. Y'all know me though, I love when retro figures are recreated or expanded in the modern day. So in 2018, Super 7, as part of their reaction line, which fits perfectly in with the vintage Alien Kenner style, did release the original prototypes. They found the artwork, they found all the notes on the products, and recreated as best they could this line. They even went as far as to go and create kind of dinky play sets that would have been made in 1978. More characters. They really went hard and sort of gave us what we could have and should have had, maybe if the movie had been a little more, PG rated. That said, they did make Ellen Ripley. They did label the spacesuit character as Kane, which again, I think makes sense, but also I wouldn't mind a Ripley in spacesuit character as well. So good news all around. And that's it for Ripley, for Angry Boomers, for Alien. We will come back to Aliens at some point in the future, but I would like to thank you for watching and for liking and sharing, subscribing, and all those YouTubey things. And I will see you next time on MIA 80s Ladies.